Hello and welcome to Motorsport Talks. This is a BTCC special. Yes, I know we're still a couple of months out yet from the new season, but they have just announced the PTLs for next season. If you're new to this, if you've got no idea what we're talking about, then by all means join in the conversation and ask us what we mean. But PTLs are pretty simply the licenses given out to the teams to tell them how many cars they can put on the grid. Now, as we know, over the last couple of years, Alan Gow has come out and said he wants to minimise the grid and increase the competitivity. I can't make the word up, but make it more competitive. So you'll be pleased to know that he has done just that by giving 32 cars onto the grid. And joining us tonight is, of course, Andy Hopley. He's back, and he is the BTCC expert. So, Andy, yes, 32 cars on the grid next season.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh, and good evening to everyone, or good morning or afternoon, wherever you guys are listening to. Yeah, 32 grid is going to be a large, we were discussing before we went live, it is going to be probably the most hectic grid in history.
Yeah, I think I have looked through, and I'm pretty sure this is actually one of the biggest grids in British touring car history. And coming to think about it, you have to wonder, is this actually the biggest saloon car championship in the world now? Because V8 supercars, I don't think they have that many cars on the grid. You know, NASCAR, you can't really describe that as saloon car. So you think of world touring cars, that's barely got 20 cars on the grid. You know, it's just crazy, isn't it?
Oh, it is. As I said before, it is going to be hectic, especially a lap time round front hatch Indy circuit. It's only 1.2 mile long. So, you know, the majority of the field are going to have to try and push the way to get into maybe the top 10, maybe the top 5. It's going to be crazy throughout the season, regardless what circuit you go to. But you can see at least half the field potentially fighting for maybe top 15.
I mean, I've got one of my clever ideas for this, right? For the shorter circuits, they should do what NASCAR do for the short circuits, which is duels, where they split the field into 2 races. And then what happens is the top 10 from those 2 races then race in the third one to determine the top 10 of the grid.
Just saying, I'm actually...
But rather than a qualifying session, you have 3 races instead.
Yeah, it could be very interesting if that did come about, but just remember, Josh, it is going hybrid, so it is an unknown territory next season.
Yeah, there is that. But one of the big questions that came up, obviously, reading about this, while BTCC is this huge grid, as I said, one of the biggest in the world, surely it should have a blue ribbon event, you know, big, massive event like the Bathurst 1000, you know, like World Touring Cars has a Nordschleife, you know. So why doesn't British Touring Cars have a blue ribbon event? Like, for example, I don't know, like an endurance race at Silverstone, or even have their finale, last race of the season, at night.
Yeah, that's the thing, Josh, but as I'm going to say here, and just quickly brief on it, as a fan of 22 years, the night race first came in 99, as we know, at Snetterton, but it's astronomical, sorry for spelling or saying, but it's the costing. But I can see where you're coming from. It would be nice to have night racing back, of course it would, and to have a blue ribbon event where, you know, because of that many cars on the grid, it would be sensational. It would be absolute epic for the fans as well as teams and drivers up and down the paddock. But it is very difficult to literally get that in place. I'm not trying to say it is going to be difficult, but it probably would be because of costing.
I mean, because you got V8 Supercars supporting the Formula 1 at Melbourne this year. You've got at Hungary, they had the World Touring Cars and the ETCR support Formula 1. So we've had, and then I think, if I'm rightly, Jeddah had the Arabian Tour TCR series. or Asian TCR series, they supported them there. So Formula One has touring cars support them at certain events. So why couldn't you combine touring cars, one of the biggest, massively followed events, with Formula One, another hugely followed event? Have BTCC run on Saturday, one race, like a 1 hour race on a Saturday. I'm sure they could fit it into their schedule at some point, even running it before or after, whatever. But because BTCC has, of course, supported Formula One in the past at Silverstone in the Super Touring era, and then it just sort of went on its own a bit, and now it's big enough, I'd say, to come back. And I think it will just be amazing for it.
Yeah, I think that's half the thing, and obviously, like you said, Super Touring was higher hiatus back in the day, with obviously spotting the Grand Prix at Silverstone up until the end of '96. But is there something we don't know? Is there something within the championship that we need to figure out? Maybe it could be something we could plan, because obviously with it going hybrid, it's something the teams and drivers may need to work out. But yeah, like I say, it'd be nice to see something really spectacular to round out the season, or maybe in between to spice it up a bit.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, I think that's what this championship needs now. It's big enough to deserve a blue ribbon event. So I think Allengall has to sort of look into doing that, because, as I said, at the moment it's just a 30 race. It's one of the biggest touring car race series in the world. It's followed all around the world, and yet it's still only a 30 race calendar. It's not 29 races and a big one. We've got factory backing from BMW, from Toyota this season, and I think that's it. I think that's it this season. Yeah, in fact, yeah. So we've got two manufacturers backing them, big backing them as well. So surely, for them to have a big blue ribbon event would do it wonders. Just a final question before we get into the dissection of the TBL. Obviously, Birmingham Super Prix, 1991, amazing street circuit. It was incredibly competitive. It was fast. It was brilliant. Should we be bringing street circuits back to BTCC?
See, this is the thing, Josh. You mentioned about the Birmingham Super Prix. That in its heyday, yeah, okay. Like I say, I'm a fan of 22 years, but seeing that on YouTube was fascinating. Bringing street circuits back to BTCC is a whole different level. It's now down to, obviously, safety. It's now down to potentially licensing, because obviously abroad, like in V8 Supercars, maybe DTM, they have to have obviously in mainland Europe, it's the FIA that have got to approve that to go ahead. I don't know about in Australia I think it's CAMS that deal with Confederation Motorsport Australia or whatever.
Yeah, because they have the Gold Coast, don't they? The Gold Coast 500.
They have a lot of, especially with the likes of Townsville. But is it to do with getting approval from the local authority over in certain countries in the world? Over here, yeah, it'd be good to bring it back, but have we got to ask for special permission for it to happen? Basically, what I'm trying to say is I would love the Birmingham Super Prix to come back, but have it as a temporary BTCC circuit.
Yeah, I mean, looking through all the series, right, you got NASCAR's got 2 street circuits this year. IMSA's got the Long Beach and Detroit. IndyCar's got a street circuit. V8 Supercars have got a street circuit. WTCR have got a street circuit. Formula One have got a street circuit. Yet Britain, the British series, don't. We don't have any street circuits in Great Britain. All right? Surely this has to be looked at. Why don't Britain have a street circuit when pretty much everywhere else around the world has street circuits? that you can use. Surely, like, you could use, like, we've had the Formula E around the Excel Centre. Why can't you use Canary Wharf in London? For example, Canary Wharf isn't used at weekends, right? Not used at all at weekends, or very rarely. So it caused very little disruption. It's a nice little tight, fast circuit. Why not? As long as you pad up the buildings a little bit, we'll be fine. I think this is something that has to be asked more and more now, and why don't you guys at home start the trend on Twitter, #British Street Circuit. Any questions that have come up recently you want to ask us anymore, please do on #BTCC Talks on Twitter, on Facebook, all the other social media. But we are now going to look into these TBL licenses. Now, let me just run through who has what. So, Accelerate still has the 4 licenses that were last year. Then you've got Team Dynamics, who have actually been given a 3rd car, and they have actually said they're keeping 1 car from last year and building 2 brand new ones. So that'll be interesting. Then we've got what was a Team Hard Laser Tools Racing. That's been split up to the point where we now have Aidan Moffat Racing with 2, which is Aidan Moffat and Ash Sutton. Then we've got Motor Base Performance. They've got 4, which will be all their focuses again. Team Hard have got their 3 Leons. Speedworks Motorsport have been given a 3rd license for their Corolla. So surely, and that we'll talk about it in a bit, Andy Jordan should get that seat, bearing in mind he's tested that car pretty much all year. It's only fair. Team WSR has been given they've got given the 3rd license again, so they've got 3 cars, and Tom Oliphant has now left, which means there's a space there for someone. Then we've got Sicily Racing with their 2 BMWs, Powermax Racing with their 2 Vauxhalls, BTC Racing will have the 4th Honda Civic, and I'm guessing that will be the Team Dynamics Honda Civic from last year. It might be a new one, but I'm guessing so. Team Dynamics has already said they are building all of the BTC Racing Hondas for this year. So that will be interesting to see how that works out. And then we've got Boardley Motorsport with 2 licenses. Now, this is interesting because Carl Boardley has stepped back and is being the team manager for this season, not racing. So there's potentially 1 or 2 seats there. Trade Price Cars has been gobbled up completely by Accelerate Racing now. So that's where those 2 cars have gone. So, Andy, first of all, Speedworks.
Yep.
Do you think Andy Jordan should have that seat guaranteed?
See, this is the thing, Josh, right? He tested that car, as we all know, not as you know, because you obviously know. But what I heard on Twitter, he's not coming back to BTCC. I've heard on social media, okay, sorry, blurted out Twitter, because that's where I've heard it from. But if he came back, yes, I think it would be good for him. But he's already stated he's probably not going to come back. But is that just a rumour, or is that just to silence critics such as yourself and I? But
yeah,
I don't get it. But I'd like to see him back because he is a likeable driver.
Yeah, I think everyone would. I think it's he brings something to the racing that no one else does with his rallycross knowledge and his car control. No matter what car he's been in, I mean, we've seen him in the Ford Focus, the 1 Series, the 3 Series, the Honda Civic. He's been outrageous car control. But the other thing that came out from Speedworks was, of course, that Rory Butcher is going to be team leader for next season, but Sam Smelt, who hasn't got a contract at the moment, apparently he has been dropped by Speedworks. Now, don't quote me on this, it's just a rumour, but rumour has it that he has been dropped by Speedworks. So there's 2 seats there that could be filled, that needs to be filled by Toyota.
That's the thing, because Toyota, as you said, Toyota are manufactured back, so they're going to want someone who's going to push for a manufacturer title to take the manufacturer title to potentially WSR running the BMWs.
And can Butcher do that?
Well, the answer is yes and no. I'm not going to go and straightly agree he can do it. I think personally, yes, okay, he can do it because he's now going to be ringleader of Speedworks. But the problem is, and okay, don't quote me, don't get me wrong, don't shoot me down, whatever you do. But last season when he was learning the Corolla, the car he famously, I hate to say this, harpooned out of the race at Stetson in 2020, okay, the Hunter Tom Ingle, when he was driving the Motorbase. But I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but I feel like, okay, he didn't have the best of luck. He was thereabouts, but that shouldn't at Thruxton in round number 1, obviously race 2, it kind of didn't really be on the money straight away. But I think, he's got the capability to now bring Speedworks as a ring contender. But is it going to be, if Sam Spelt has been dropped and the rumours are true, who are they going to bring in to help that Butcher momentum?
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the big question that we're going to have answered, I'm hoping, in the next 2 months or so. Looking down, we've also got Team Dynamics, okay, who have said they're getting this brand new Civic. So immediately, guess who comes into the mix? It is, of course, Matt Neal. You know, he's been racing for, nearly 25 seasons now, right? You know, he's been going on forever. And
sorry to interrupt, Josh, but if he does race, he's now going to be his 31st, because it was his 30th last year, not as in 2021. 2020 was his 30th.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So this will be his 31st season. Yeah, this will be his 31st season. I think he needs a big finale. You know what I mean? We missed in 2020. Neil versus Plato won last time. They're both getting on a bit. We need a Neil versus Plato scenario in touring cars.
What I'm going to say here, just before we briefly carry on down the order, but Plato and Neil, like I said previously on this show, they were driving differently because each of them were on the track. But if Neil comes back, he's then got the fight of Flash, aka Gordon Shedden, because Gordon's already been retained. And obviously, of course, Dan Rowbottom, 2021 Jack Sears Trophy winner, and also a 1-time and 2 times pole position contender for 2021. He's got, okay, Matt's got it in the experience. As you say, we need that fight between him and Plato to give it one last go before they both hang up their helmets and their race suits and their boots to say, let's go. They are best of mates now, from what I've heard. If I'm wrong, quote me. But I'd like to see Matt back. But rumour has it Dan Cam may come back and say that seat off him. That is something we need to figure out, or everyone's going to figure out in the off-season. But I don't know. My head's spinning to see who's going to get it.
I mean, obviously, there is still the speculation with, you know, up-and-coming drivers from juniors, from the minis, and all this as well. So, we're obviously, it's December, you know, we're miles away from the start of the next season. You know, the media day's not until March, so we've got plenty of time to look through it all. But, you know, so the fact that we've got 3 cars in for Team Dynamics, that's a good one to ask. And as you said, Rowbottom is being retained, 2-year deal. Rumour has it he will be the team leader next season, not Shedden. That's going to be a big talking point when that's completely announced. But the reason is because Robo was considered to be the better driver.
Okay, just to quickly go on about that, Okay, I'm not being biased because I've been Dan Rowbottom fan, and yes, I've got my Team Dynamics jacket on. But if Robo is team leader, what happened to Shedden this year? Why has he now dropped from number 2 status? Okay, this is not a discussion for here, but for you guys on Twitter or social media, do get involved, because I'm not backing, well, okay, I'll back Dan Rowbottom, yes. But I don't understand how Shedden's just automatically dropped from number 1 driver status that he should have been this year. And yeah, he's had a disaster, but why is he now number 2?
Well, my belief is that Shedden is obviously, he's getting on a bit, and I believe from what everyone thought, this will be his last season. Everyone, from what he said when he came into the season, into the championship last season, he wasn't going to be there for a long while. Robo is. So the idea is Robo will be able to bring Team Dynamics into the hybrid area and then beyond. Whereas Shedden obviously could be 2022, this could be last year. Why give him a team leader role and then change it again?
That's also what I mean. It's like, that's why I don't want to bring it into a hefty debate. I want people to engage because, okay, if Robo brings Team Dynamics to number 1 status and brings them to championship winning again, because he stated at the end of Bronze Hatch this year, obviously 2021, that he was aiming, now that Jaxie is over and done with, he's won that, he's aiming for overall now, which is going to be, I'll be honest, a big, massive step forward for him, because the pressure is now going to be mounting and mounting. Because he's only 32 years old. Okay, I'm only saying that because he's the same age as me. But he's 32 years old and he's now got a big mountain to climb. No disrespect if Dan Rowbottom is listening. I highly respect him. But, okay, let's see what happens if he is number 1 status.
But surely isn't that the whole point of the Jaxius trophy?
Well, of course.
To give you the trophy and then to catapult you with your confidence.
That's what I mean, Josh.
Into the Drivers' Championship.
I'm not arguing with that fact. That's what I mean. Look at Josh Cook. When he won that, that's catapulted him to number 1 status in multiple teams.
Yeah, exactly.
BTC racing.
Yeah, and that actually blends really nicely because obviously the big news is BTC Racing will have 4 cars next season. That's huge. Bearing in mind that BTC Racing back in 2009 debuted with 1 Seat Leon, if I'm rightly.
Correct.
Now they're talking about 4 brand new cars for the championship.
They've been on the grid since then.
Yeah,
and they've only had 1 car, but now to expand to 4 cars. Okay,
this is big. So basically, from what people have been saying and what the rumours are, is that the whole team will be kept for next season, which is good news for Jade Edwards, Josh Cook, and Senna Proctor. They will be the 3 drivers, and very, very, very high percentage of people have been saying that Michael Crease will return to BTC Racing because he has in the past, and even when he hasn't been racing touring cars last season, he did a lot of work for BTC Racing behind the scenes. So, and also he put on Twitter very early on, I think about a month ago now, he goes, 2022 is looking like a big year, #BTC.
Yep.
And everyone thought it was a spelling mistake until,
Well, that's the thing, because in 2020, he won the Jack Sears Trophy with BTC Racing. So he obviously knows the team. He was due to drive for them this season, but obviously with budgetary issues, he couldn't compete.
And he ended up going into the Porsche Super Cup Europe, which was a bit like, really?
And then over the season, gosh knows when, but he was also linking up with Accelerate, So there's a lot of rumours where he may go, but I think BTC, not BTCC, sorry. But I think he's a strong candidate to go back there and have the almighty, maybe FK8 Type R, the hatchback version. I'm not too sure exactly what's coming next season. No one does, but it'll be very interesting to see if he does come back, because he is a very likeable. I even said to myself the other day when I sat at home, Michael Creasey's fan base back in 2019 was a massive hit. From someone that had started off watching, spectating, jumping into racing, then jumping into Genetas, but then going into Touring Car's Britain's Touring Car Premier category in 2019 with Team Hard, to have that fan base straight away is a massive, already one confidence boost.
It's huge confidence boost, you know, and Josh Cook is going to be the driver, he's going to be the team leader in that, as we would expect, even though to some extent everyone was thinking Senna Proctor would be the number one driver because he was arguably the better driver last season. Cook's got no more experience, and we expect Cook to be the lead driver, you know, everyone does. And then the other big thing to come from that, obviously, trade price cars, which ran to Hyundai's last season, that's now going to be under Accelerate. So there's going to be no trade price cars team. You know, that's pretty much obvious. No driver changes.
Isn't it, basically?
Yeah, it's going to be the same drivers in the Accelerate, also, you know, as it was last season, so that's not going to be an issue. You know, Aidan Moffat and Ash Sutton will be racing under Aidan Moffat Racing rather than Laser Tools Racing. Not much change, you know, as far as we can tell. The livery will still be the same.
Let me stop you here, okay? I am not going to jump in and disagree. Aidan Moffat Racing, I've heard a sneak rumour or a sneak thing that he tested the Team Hard Cupra. Does that mean the Infinity's going?
Well,
this is what I want to know, or I want to try and say. I don't want to throw the spanner in the works, pardon the pun, but he tested the Cupra. Is that something we need to be aware of? Or, because obviously they've now split away from Team Hard yet again, because Team Hard, they joined up as Force last season, or 2021, but they're now known as Aidan Moffat Racing, aka Laser Tools,
run by Aidan Moffat's dad.
Yes, but is the Infinity going, or am I just imagining the Cupra's just going to be still with Team Hard and the Infinity's still going to be on the grid? Because Ash Sutton did a very stellar job to get back-to-back titles in that Q50. And we got to see it.
But that Q50, don't forget, is nearly 10 years old now.
Oh, that's true.
When it debuted.
Yeah, that is exactly true. So is that some
as Portugal Paris Racing? I believe 2014 under support Paris Racing was when it debuted.
2014, and Richard Hawkins tweeted the other day that he's got the Q50 back in the original Support Paris livery, or got the car back and it will be restored back to its full livery. Does that
maybe doing the Cupras then?
Does that mean the Cupras are going to Aidan Moffat Racing because Aidan's tested that Cupra? Well, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's 100% negative, but is that the heart says one thing and my head says another? But okay, you tell me more, Josh, and I will see in my head if I agree.
Again, this is what is going to be so interesting about it all. It's, you know, as far as we're aware, when the season ended, everyone thought there'll be no new cars on the grid. Everyone will be kept in the same cars, just a different powertrain. You know, the Infinities, the Beamers, the Hunt, everyone.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it. Infinity don't do a hybrid for that car.
No.
And the rules say you've got to have the road-going version to be similar to the race-going version. So you can't use the Infinity because it doesn't have a hybrid.
So, okay, what's the rumour floating about Ash Sutton driving a Jaguar next season. Because that's
Jaguar? What?
Yeah, that's been floated around on social media.
Well, I mean, I said we'll have to keep an eye out because that's news to me.
Exactly. I'm on so many BTCC social media groups on social media, but people say Ash Sutton's going to turn up in a Jaguar. But hang on, we're not talking about the E-Pace, because the E-Pace is miles from, it's hybrid, but it's not. Is it really a BTCC car?
If it be Jag, it will be the XE. My thing, it will be the XE. If it will be the Jaguar, the small one, the small saloon car.
That's what I'm hearing all sorts of things about Ash Sutton.
Yeah. But I think they're just huge amount of rumours, like just. Yeah. I mean, Honda only just started building their cars for next year. The majority of the teams haven't built their cars yet. Testing, for example.
So what are Dynamics running then?
They're running the Civics.
Okay, right, okay.
The testing, from the testing that's been done, the testing's been in the Cupra, because the Cupra had already been all changed into hybrid. The 1 Series for Sicily Racing, and then I think Team Dynamics used a 1 Series as well, because they had the hybrid system put into them. And I believe the Toyotas were doing the testing in the Corolla, but I don't think they're allowed to do testing in 2022 car yet. I'll have to check the rules again. I'm pretty sure they're only allowed to do a certain amount of testing. I don't think the testing's allowed yet.
No, because I think, just to jump into that, like you say, with Sicily, they had the 1 Series. They know for a fact, because obviously the 22 car, maybe engine, obviously from M Sport, it's probably, they're getting so many supplied because they're going to realise that teams are going to want to build their own hybrid system. But, it's going to be interesting to see what does come about, because, as I said before, it is an unknown in quantity.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to see the cars like the FKA, the BM. We know for a fact the 3 Series for WSR is coming back, because that is electric, essentially. But I don't want to jump in and say these cars are coming, these cars aren't. I don't want to upset touring car fanatics like ourselves.
I don't think we will know until late February, really.
Yeah, of course. So
but you said the big news coming out of that is obviously that the 2 TBLs that Baldy Racing had have been given back to Team Hard and Laser Tools Racing. Okay, because Carl Bordley's leaving, so Team Hard will actually have 5 TBLs, I believe. Because they'll have the 3 they've been given and the 2 from Carl Bordley Racing.
Yep.
So that they'll have 5. They'll have 5 cars they can field. Or I believe, from what I've read, they can be loaned out to another team on a 1-season basis.
Yeah.
So we have got 2 cars that we don't know what team will field them. So the 32 car grid, it might not even be a 32 car grid. Sorry to put it down and all, but Team Hard left 5. Our Team Hard going to field 5 Cupras.
Yeah.
Our BTC Racing and Nick another one have 5. Is Accelerate going to field another car? That's the question. But so let us know on social media again. What do you think about these TBL licenses? Where do you think the final 2 cars will come from? Do you think Team Hard will field 5? Do you think Sutton will be racing in a Jaguar? Will Aidan Moffat Racing be Jaguars next season? That would be amazing to see. Jaguar hasn't been in BTCC, of course, for nearly 40 years since the XJs. So we're talking a huge comeback for Jag. But we're going to move, finally, just a little briefly touch on some of the news. And most importantly, as you talking about M Sport with the hybrids, WRC, of course, is entering a brand new era. And we're talking a huge new era for rallying. Gone are those 2-litre turbos, the 1.6 turbos we've had for nearly 20 years since McRae and Burns, in the Focus and Corolla. And they've been testing around Monaco and Croatia and elsewhere, the Hyundais and Toyotas. But one of the big things to come out of it so far is that the Ford Puma is well on the pace. From what the testing has shown, they reckon the Ford Puma could be up to 3 seconds faster than the Hyundais and the Toyotas, right? Which is huge news, because anyone who is an M Sport fan will be pleased to know that we could finally have an M Sport competing for the title again. Now, this is incredible. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Andy, is the fact that the Fords are doing so well in early testing, and the fact that M Sport have come out, done all last year. That's, Goodwood, they were exposing the car everywhere. Everywhere you look, this new Puma was being driven. Is that too much exposure and hyping the car up too much for what is going to prove to be a difficult season? I mean, that calendar looks horrible for anyone who, isn't a driver, really.
Yeah, this is the thing, Josh. I think, have they really exposed it far too much? I don't really 50-50 know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But because, as you say, it's more, 3/10 quicker or certain bits and pieces. But is that something they're trying to say because it is obviously Britain's homegrown talent, aka M Sport? Luckily, I live not far from M Sport, but is it something? Are they trying to tell us that after how many years being beaten by the likes of Toyota, Hyundai, even Citroen when they were in WRC, is it now saying, well, we need to now fight to what we want to get winning ways again? It's very, I don't know. It's something we need to figure out. And obviously, yes, it should be exactly how it should be. But, yeah, okay, I can see the Puma jumping onto the base. But the brand exposure, maybe it's to get people to say the road car is going to be exactly how you want it to be. Just imagine, okay, you shouldn't really say just imagine, but is it because the lack of a UK round / Rally GB isn't existing on the calendar at the moment? There's obviously rumours going over to Northern Ireland or Southern Ireland for Rally GB. But,
yeah, I heard about the Ulster coming back.
But are they trying to say because if we don't have a local rally, we need to perform quite well abroad? Is it to get that car recognised so it can go abroad and be sold over abroad? The exposure's good, but is it, like you say, is it too much? It could be. I don't know.
I mean, it's good for me to know that Kenya's back in June, which is going to be good, because Kenya last year was ridiculous. I mean, it was just so fast. It was almost terrifying. They were hitting ridiculous speeds, and obviously can be even faster with hybrid. New Zealand, of course, that's back. That's always a great rally to watch. Sweden, Finland. We've got Monza. That's coming back. Well, that's coming back at the start of the season, not at the end of the season. We've got Japan going up the Fuji mountain. That'll be another great one to have as well. So it's going to be a good season. Of course, we can look ahead to it next year. But do you think M Sport have been given a huge advantage? And this relates back to touring cars as well. with Toyota. The Corolla being the test car for the M Sport hybrid system for BTCC, the Puma being the hybrid test car for the WRC. Do you think this has given them a huge advantage, or do you think they're not allowed to take any data from the test cars?
Well, this is the thing, Josh. I think with going to testing, like you say, we've just briefly touched on it. Toyota with the hybrid for BTCC, maybe they're not allowed to share data just in case teams like copy it. I'm not saying they're going to copy it, but for the Puma to be 100% being tested for WRC, that could be somewhat that, you know, likes of Hyundai and Toyota aren't allowed to potentially get hold of, because obviously WRC is FIA. Is it something that they can't technically breach? I don't know. It's something that I'm umming and ahhing against, because I don't really want to say that M Sport aren't allowed to give away secrets, but is it because it's backed by FIA that they're trying to say, no, you guys have got, like the example, Toyota, aka Jerry Matty Lapfler and Tommy Mäkinen, can't have, and whoever runs Hyundai can't have, because then you're going to try and say, well, the WRC is very competitive. It has been for God knows how many years. But I feel like the situation is going to be very difficult, because if there's no British round of the World Rally Championship, M Sport are going to want to perform around the globe and say, look at us, we are winners in, let's say, New Zealand, Sweden, Monte Carlo, Monza, you name it. But like Toyota and Hyundai, they're almost like German factory based, aren't they? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, Hyundai, I think most Hyundais now are built in Germany. And I think Toyota also is a German base. Yeah, I think Toyota's got a German base as well.
But because of that, because they're like Central European, maybe mainland European, and we're over here with M Sport, they're like, well, we know this, it's in our own backyard, whereas M Sport have got to travel to come over to like Europe, Australasia, America, or wherever they go. So it's kind of like we don't have that access to essentially get the mileage is what we want, because we are obviously English based. I'm not trying to say that's the issue, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a look to see who's driving for M Sport. I think Trevor Breen, and I think the big ones are Trevor Breen and Sebastian Loeb, I think, are driving for M Sport next season. So that would be very good. And you know, so we've got an Irish driver who's brilliant. I mean, Trevor Breen has been brilliant for years. And then, of course, Sebastian Loeb, who, you know, how much better could you get? Couldn't really. And we've also, of course, got Elfyn Evans in Toyota.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, Josh. Right? Okay, with obviously Sebastian Loeb, if he's at M Sport with that Puma, for how many years has Sebastian Loeb dominated in Citroen, competing against the Focus? To have him now at the arch rivals as such is a fantastic thing, especially for me, because I did not like Sebastian Loeb dominating in that Citroen, beating the Ford Focus. But that's all I have to say, mate. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to jump in and jump on the bandwagon, but that's just me.
The huge news, of course, with Craig Breen, of course, not Trevor Breen, sorry, Craig Breen, is that he'll sign on 2 years. So he's got this year, 2022 and 2023 for WRC. But 2021, he drove for Hyundai. So M Sport have nicked him from Hyundai.
Yep.
So this shows you that they mean business. You know, signing Craig Breen, who was a Hyundai, who looked promising for Hyundai, and Sebastian Loeb, they've basically said to Hyundai and Toyota, you've had it easy for a few years. Not anymore, you ain't. You know, I hope you got a good car ready. Because, and I mean, we're talking about this, but just over a month's time, we will actually see on the hills of Monaco and Monte Carlo what it is. I mean, 'cause it starts on the 20th of January, which I cannot wait for that Thursday night stage. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, with the flares and the smoke and the fireworks and potentially the ice. Hopefully this year we get a bit more Monte Carlo-y weather. Last year it was more raining than snowing, and the year before that they actually had the issue with leaves. There were so many leaves on the road that the cars overheated because of the leaves, you know. So hopefully this year we get a bit more wintry Monte Carlo rather than climate change Monte Carlo. But I mean, the reason why we're talking about this as well, because I think this new era is actually going to be a really exciting era for WRC. And it's got, over the last few years, more and more competitive with the likes of Elfin Evans and, you know, Neuville and all of them. And now we've got this new car. You know, I cannot wait for the start of this season. It's going to be so competitive. I mean, as I said, we'll look into it in a few weeks just before the start of the Monaco. But with BTCC and the TBL changes, we've got WRC coming up, we've got all this. I mean, the thought which everyone had when it was all going to hybrid was, oh, we're going to lose the excitement of motorsport, it's going to be boring and all this. It doesn't look that way at all.
No, that's the thing, because people have just literally thought, okay, it's down to, like you say, losing the excitement of motorsport. They're already jumping on and saying, well, is it to do with the fact is we're going to lose the engine notes? You know, is it going to be really quiet? Is it going to be exactly like a hybrid road car where you don't hear it until you see it sort of attitude? But it's going to be great regardless, because the engines are still going to be there. But I think it's just, obviously, I was discussing this to myself like this afternoon, saying, you know, it's just a hybrid boost, or it's just electrical powered, just so, you know, they're adapting to exactly what years to come are going to be. But it's so difficult to pick that out there.
Well, exactly. And let us know across social media using, again, hashtag BTCC Talks or hashtag Motorsport Talks. WRC, RM Sport, really going to be a championship contender for 2022? Will you be watching WRC for 2022? I'm intrigued to see how many people do watch it, because I feel it has lost a bit of popularity over the last few years. But let us know. You know, we'll be cheering on the local drivers, Breen and Elfin Evans. And, of course, you know, let us know. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in today. Don't forget the discussion on social media. Keep it going with all this. And thank you, of course, to our lovely panelist, Andy, who has been brilliant. Lots of insight in touring cars. I'm sure he'll continue to give his insight over the next few weeks leading up to the championship. And tune in, because in just over an hour, no, hang on, just over half an hour, sorry, we are going to attempt to dissect what was one of the greatest Formula One races of all time. See you later, guys.
Hmm.